The first time I met her, I was covered in mud, blood, and mechanical oil. The battlefield of Alien 9 stretched endlessly under a fractured sky. A ruined planet at the edge of the Orion Arm human forces had been retreating for 3 days straight, driven back by an army of Dravari, towering reptilian aliens bred for war. I was part of the cleanup unit scavengers, really. We collected what could be salvaged: wounded soldiers, power cells, memory cores, and sometimes prisoners. That's when we found her. She wasn't like the others, not scaled, not monstrous. She looked almost human, save for the faint bioluminescent veins glowing under her skin and the strange, cat-like pupils in her pale green eyes. Her wrists were bound with quantum filament, but even restrained, she radiated defiance. "Lieutenant Vale," Sergeant Cross muttered, shoving his pulse rifle toward her. "You sure we should keep this one breathing? Looks like a commander type." I crouched beside her. "What's your name?" She didn't answer at first. Her jaw tightened. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, melodic, and entirely unlike the guttural speech of her kind. "Lyra." The name sounded too soft for Warzone. We brought her back to base, a half-collapsed bunker buried in sand and smoke. She sat silently while the others whispered. Everyone knew the Dravari didn't take prisoners, and they sure as hell didn't show mercy. But orders were orders, interrogation before execution. That night, as the storm held outside, I was assigned guard duty. I tried to act indifferent, to keep my distance, but she kept watching me, eyes bright in the dim light, curious in a way that made me uneasy. "You're different from the others," she said suddenly. I blinked. "Different how?" "You don't look at me like I'm an animal." Her words hit harder than I expected. I didn't know what to say, so I looked away, pretending to check my rifle. But then, because I've never been good at silence, I muttered, "Maybe because I've seen animals with more honor than soldiers." She tilted her head. "Even your own?" That made me laugh. "Especially my own." For a moment, she smiled. It was small, quick, gone before I could be sure I'd seen it. Days turned into weeks. Command forgot about her. The warfront shifted elsewhere, and Lyra became part of the background noise of my life. I brought her rations, changed her bindings, and tried not to think about how her voice echoed in my head when she slept. Soft, alien, beautiful. We talked sometimes, small things. She asked about Earth, about oceans, about what rain felt like. I told her stories of forests, of storms, of blue skies that stretched forever. And one night, she told me hers. Her people weren't monsters, not really. They were desperate. The Dravari hierarchy had enslaved dozens of lesser species. Lyra wasn't a soldier by choice. She was born into service, trained to kill before she could walk. "I was told humans were cruel," she admitted one night. "But you gave me water before asking questions." "Why?" I shrugged. Seemed like the human thing to do. She stared at me a long time, then whispered something in her own language. I didn't understand the words, but the tone, it was gentle, reverent. "What did you say?" I asked. "It doesn't translate," she said with a faint smile. Something like, "I will remember this." I thought nothing of it. The next morning, Command called for redeployment. The Dravari had launched a counterattack. We were to evacuate within hours. Lyra would be left behind. Protocol was clear. No prisoners during retreat. Cross found me near the shuttle. Orders are to leave her, Vale. You know what that means. I did. A plasma charge to the cell door. Quick, clean, final. But when I looked through the bars and saw her sitting there, staring at the ground, something in me twisted. I couldn't do it. "Get up," I told her quietly, unlocking the cuffs. "We're leaving." She blinked in disbelief. You'll be executed if they find out. Yeah, I said, forcing a grin. Guess we better not let them find out. We slipped out through a maintenance hatch and crossed the dunes under firelight. By the time the first bombardment hit the base, we were miles away, two fugitives in a galaxy that didn't forgive either of our kinds. We hid in an abandoned transport, huddled together as dust storms roared outside. She was shivering, not from fear, but from cold. Without thinking, I pulled off my jacket and wrapped it around her. Her fingers brushed mine. Just a touch. Accidental, fleeting. Thank you, she murmured. For what? For treating me like I mattered. I smiled awkwardly. Don't mention it. She looked at me strangely then, not like a soldier or a prisoner, but like someone memorizing every detail. And when I looked back for a split second, I forgot she wasn't human. Later, the escape. We eventually reached the human evacuation point, hidden among the shattered cliffs of Eris Ridge. The dropships were preparing to leave. The officers didn't ask questions when I arrived. They saw a wounded soldier, not the alien cloaked in my jacket behind me. We almost made it. Almost. Lieutenant Vale. Cross's voice cracked through the comms. Who's that with you? Lyra froze. I turned, raising my weapon. She's with me, I said evenly. She's a Dravari, Cross snapped. You're harboring the enemy. She's not. Before I could finish, a shot rang out. The blast missed her by inches. Lyra didn't move. She just looked at me, eyes calm, steady, as if waiting to see which side I'd choose. I fired back. Not to kill.
Just to make them stop.
By the time the dropships took off, alarms were blaring, soldiers shouting. Lyra and I vanished into the canyons. We were alone again. That night, we camped by a dying fire. She sat across from me, her face lit in orange and gold. You risked everything, she whispered. For me. I laughed bitterly. Guess I'm just bad at following orders. She shook her head.
No.
You're good at being human. The wind howled between the stones. I wanted to say something, anything, but the word stuck in my throat. Instead, I looked at her and said the first stupid thing that came to mind. You know, you've got a beautiful smile. She blinked, startled. Then her cheeks glowed faintly blue. What does that mean? She asked softly. Blushing, I said, smiling. It's a human thing. She looked down, hiding her face. Then maybe I am learning. We both laughed, quietly, awkwardly. Just a moment between two broken people who shouldn't have found comfort in each other. It meant nothing, I told myself. But she never forgot it. Ending. Months later, the war ended, not with victory, but exhaustion. A ceasefire. The Dravari withdrew. The humans rebuilt. I went home to Earth, discharged with honors and scars. Sometimes I dreamed of her. Glowing eyes, quiet voice, the sound of wind in the canyons. And then one night, years later, I found her again. Not on a battlefield. Not in chains. In orbit. The Unity Summit, the first interspecies council after the ceasefire. Delegates from across the galaxy came to sign the peace accords. I was just there as an advisor, a relic of old wars. And there she was, Ambassador Lyra of the Dravari, standing tall, elegant, wrapped in silver robes that shimmered like moonlight. The same eyes, the same quiet strength. She saw me before I could look away. For a long moment, she just stared, then crossed the room without hesitation. Vale, she said softly. It's been a long time. Yeah, I breathed. Didn't think you'd remember me. Her smile was faint, sad. You once gave me water when no one else would. You called me beautiful when I didn't know what the word meant. I remember everything. I didn't know what to say. Around us, Diplomats whispered, cameras clicked, history being made, and yet it felt like only the two of us existed. I thought it was nothing, I murmured. Just a moment. To you, maybe, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But to me, it was the first time someone saw more than what I was made to be. I swallowed hard. Lyra, she reached out, not to touch, but to place a small object in my hand. A pendant, shaped like a glowing tear of glass. I made this, she said. A Dravari promise, a reminder of what cannot be forgotten. Why give it to me? Because I wanted you to know that what you did, what you said, changed me. The hall erupted into applause as the peace treaty was signed, but all I could hear was her voice, quiet, steady, and full of something I'd thought long lost. When it was over, she turned to leave, her robe glinting in the light. Lyra, I called.
She paused.
Do you still remember that human thing? I asked with a grin, blushing. For the first time in years, her cheeks glowed faintly blue. She smiled. Always. And just like that, she was gone into the crowd, into history. But I knew, deep down, that somewhere among the stars, she still remembered that one small, foolish, human moment. The moment she said it was nothing, and proved it meant everything.